the social media strategist for Ameren. So in charge of all the Ameren, Missouri territory, which spans pretty much most of the state of Missouri, follows the Mississippi River. And then have been in the social media industry for about 10 to 12 years. So in various different capacities in that role. So happy to share my knowledge, share kind of the crystal ball ahead for today.
And I am Shauna Williams. I serve as the graphic designer for the board. I think I've been there almost a year now. Very fun to meet all these faces in person and in virtual. So good to see you guys in here. My day job currently is actually working at an art studio. It's called Penspiration, and I manage it. So therefore I serve as the social media person and everything else there. So by trade, I'm a graphic designer. So I'm always looking to make things look pretty and legible and things like that. So I think we have one more. I don't know if he joined yet. Posey.
Yeah, I don't see Eric on, but Eric heads up operations at Big White Sky. They're located in Clayton, and he has been serving as our board president of Social Media Club. So we've gathered you all here today to talk about some 2023 social media predictions. We're going to kick off that discussion by each of our board members sharing out a trend that they're excited about, they want to dive deeper into. This is a roundtable discussion, so we're going to keep, everybody on screen. So like Matthew said, if you want to show your faces, great. If you don't, that's okay too. It is early and it is a snow day. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to do anything in my power not to leave my house today. So I will kick us off with a trend that I'm excited about. And then, like I said, we'll do the courteous thing when it comes to unmuting and muting and giving everybody a turn to speak and share their opinion. We do have the raise hand feature and things like that. But yes, please grab coffee, get settled in. My trend that I'm really excited about for 2023, it's really a business to consumer tactic, but user generated content. It's huge. It's becoming bigger and bigger. I just think it's great to see brands just leveraging that organic content from their users, resharing it on their pages, and highlighting people that are actually using their products and services. Any of you had experiences with user generated content in your organizations or brands, or have you seen it used in a way that you've really liked it in the past year, or maybe ramping up to try something in 2023? Does everybody have a clear understanding of what user generated content is? Okay, cool. That's good. I will say something that I like to do, and this is just the foodie in me, but I'll post a lot about like where I'm going out to eat or what I'm eating or what I'm doing if it's a fun activity, and always tagging those pages or those brands, especially if they're small or local, just to give them that exposure to at least my small general audience. And I know a brand that does a really good job at sharing out a lot of that UGC could be like, I know Cafe Dolce, it's on the Hill. It's a great one. They're always sharing things out from people that are posting about hanging out there. Shaw's Coffee, I think, will also do it. That's where we do some of our social sips every month. So, if we attend those and we post about it, they'll reshare some of that. Edie, thanks for sharing. I am also easily influenced by UGC way too often. It's almost like organic influencer marketing, because it's people that are by the brand, for the brand, promoting the brand. Sorry, that's my cat, everybody. And giving the brands the exposure that, they wouldn't necessarily get otherwise without investing into it, whether it's labor or otherwise.
I
Hey
think
Posey, this is Mandy from Emo's Pizza. We use UGC a lot in our feed because I mean it's pizza, right? People get pizza delivered, they go have an in-parlor experience, they take pictures with their kids. They come to St. Louis on vacation even, and someone tells them, "Oh, you haven't really been to St. Louis until you've tried Emo's." And so they upload pictures and oh my gosh, they get so excited to see themselves in our feeds. And one other added benefit of this is that when they get home, everyone that's in their friends list has seen their post. And even if they're not from St. Louis, they might say, "Oh, I saw you went to St. Louis. What was that pizza place that you went to?" So it expands our audience considerably that people are posting. And then especially when we share them on our feed, give them a highlight, they get so excited. And then, oh my God, everybody that they've ever met sees that as well.
Absolutely. And Steph, did you have something to share too?
Yeah, I was thinking just in the terms of some other big brands, Canon, right? Any photography company, you can go check out their Instagram. 99% of it is UGC. And because, photographers are, so if you have a highly visible brand, this is real easy to tap into. And especially like the hint that I would give there is go check out networks that you're not on yet. Right? Even if you don't have a presence, people are talking about you. Most likely. We just did this for a customer in like casinos, and they're like, "Should we get on TikTok?" And so we did an analysis and we were like, well, people are talking about you, whether you're there or not. So people want to share their experience. So you could start and you don't have to create any content. We could just repurpose in UGC. I would definitely tap into that market if you haven't. Even just do a Google search, right, of your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. I love hearing your different perspectives and experiences with UGC. Any plans for how you might leverage UGC for your own organization in 2023? Because I know I mentioned that it's typically a B2C function, but I think it could be used for B2B as well. So could be client testimonials, repurposing those, sharing those out on social media. I know it's probably something we've started to do is client quotes of the week. We don't necessarily share one of those out every week, but if we get, a positive comment from a client, whether it's in a meeting or via email, anything like that, we'll capture it and then we'll share it out because that right there is UGC. Yep, reviews, event reel, customer demos, absolutely.
Posey, one of the things we've also been encouraging is our employees to talk about what they're doing in their channel. Yeah. So if you're really trained to get your employees comfortable with, maybe writing a blog or something, one of the things we've done is try to encourage them to just post about something they've read, something they're following, and really kind of helping build internal confidence for them to help share information so that you can then start to get them be better about sharing content.
Yeah, I love that because it's not only employee advocacy, but it's also creating that thought leadership internally. And it also adds credibility to not only our individual team contributors, but our brand and our organization as a whole. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on UGC, or do we want to move on to discuss another trend? All right. Well, Matthew or Shauna, either one.
Sure, I can jump in. So I went a little above and beyond on trends as per usual. But I think the value of social media, just the nature of social media is most of the time we don't hardly see a major shift in progression of the social media world. Usually it comes in drips, and those drips mold into bigger things, and other social channels pick up on other social channels and incorporate it in their AI. So what I have started to see is kind of this drip campaign coming into some of these drip themes that I believe will continue, but also grow in 2023. So as we mentioned, that user-generated content, I think what we have seen is a good use of it in the larger brands, right? People don't really want to see, specifically if it's product or service driven, they don't really want to see the account doing the selling. They want to see someone else, whether it be a celebrity or just your average Joe, right? And so what we're starting to see is the big brands have now trickled that down. And so now we can actually apply those same learnings to small businesses. And so we're starting to see that as well. And we're also seeing that influencers are not a cost prohibitive tool, right? And we can see small businesses using their own clients to take advantage. Think of those return customers that come, being part of the marketing and communication process for those businesses. So I can see user-generated influencers being more of that arsenal for businesses, specifically small businesses. And then in terms of channels and channel growth, most channels have now migrated over to vertical storytelling, right? Full screen storytelling. And we're going to see that more. But what we're seeing more is not only the capabilities of vertical storytelling, but the goodies that we can pack into those videos, right? So think of links that we can apply. Think of commerce and e-commerce that we can apply into that captivated screen, right? There's nothing to distract someone. And more or less, those channels are rewarding customers and creators using vertical, right? As you can see, Facebook and Instagram put them way up, right? Most people cannot stop scrolling on TikTok, right? I honestly think it's going to, they're seeing some glimmers on LinkedIn, and I think most likely that will happen on LinkedIn as well. And you're starting to see additional capabilities on that platform, starting to get a lot of the same feel of TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, those feels on LinkedIn, as you guys may have seen. LinkedIn has increased and offered some additional capabilities. In fact, you can schedule posts now on LinkedIn straight from the channel. So we're starting to see these channels start to offer basically one-stop shops in terms of customer engagement. So, and what does that mean for all of you? So what it means is that possibly maybe in 2023, think about a video element to your business, right? How can we share maybe the same content that you do via a link or a post and do it in a video format, right? And it doesn't have to be a major production. Start small with an iPhone or with stock photography. But any way that you can start building that space, at least experimenting that space, is going to provide value and at least insight into your audiences, right? So that will continue to be a theme that will continue to grow, but also be places where people expect your content to be displayed in. And then lastly, for those people who do utilize paid in their social sphere, segmentation is going to be paramount in 2023. I think if you have access to some budget on social media, that's going to be key, because the days of just sharing to your mass audiences, while that is still fine in some way, it's not going to drive that conversion, right? People want to see the right message at the right time. And so with some level of paid support, you can start segmenting your audiences and thus getting that conversion goal that you would like, right? That you get that net outcome via that paid strategy. But also, you got to think about the tools also. So maybe you don't have the budget. So maybe think about possibly a channel that does provide you some segmentation. So think Nextdoor. So Nextdoor allows you that micro element of neighborhoods within your territory, right? we've seen it from a utility standpoint be very successful. If you're not on it, you're already being talked about. So is there if you have brick and mortar locations, is that someplace that you can take advantage of a social network that uses geolocation heavily within their architecture, right? But also, social media, we gotta kind of blend the lines here. Reviews, if you are a small business, is paramount, right? So same rules apply to social media and that response that basically your ROI, but also your response times apply to all of those as well. So I can see segmentation kind of getting tighter and tighter in 2023. And then lastly, the other theme that we have started to see due to Twitter, but is brands reevaluating risk, right? And so, with the whole tumultuous Twitter debacle and it going in and out and changing by the minute, brands, specifically larger brands, are seeing maybe we go back to the drawing board and reevaluate the channels that we do operate, and either we shift advertising or we shift manpower to specific channels that are losing, are not doing well, and shifting that to channels that do well. So I think it's always good, and it's always good to do it at the beginning of the year. It's kind of to audit your social strategy and figure out, okay, what worked and what didn't work, but specifically, okay, what are the channels look like today, right? Twitter looks vastly different today as it did this time last year, right? So how does that impact your social strategy as well? So managing risk is specifically something that we've had to deal with on our end. And so I'm curious to see if you are managing your risk or evaluating your performance across your channels. So I know I shared a lot of little nuggets that will probably drip into 2023. So any questions on any of those topics?
Matthew, I will say one thing that you highlighted that I'd love to discuss more is just the native platforms offering so many different creator tools. I think that feeds right into UGC. I mean, if we're empowered to all be creators, we're more likely to be creators and step into that role and tag those brands, post things ourselves. It looks like Amy shared a comment too. One of my clients decided to stay on Twitter because they get more click-throughs there than anywhere else, and that's important to them. Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably where the majority of their target audience lives then, if that's where they're seeing the most engagement. Totally. And one other thing that what you said made me think of is LinkedIn is adding all of these really cool tools like scheduling posts. They also have so many data and analytics tools, same with Facebook Business Manager that also captures Instagram data and analytics. Like you can see all of your engagements, all of your impressions, all of your profile visits, your reach just within that platform. It's just crazy to me that they've added all of these things that we don't even have to use a third party or search elsewhere to capture that data. It's being captured for us. So that was just something that stuck out to me.
Right.
Any other thoughts, Tom?
Well, I was going to mention too, it's probably worth you guys going back into those native platforms and just kind of refreshing the capabilities that they offer, right? Because a lot provide specific audience groups, right? You can take advantage of Facebook pixels and insight tags on LinkedIn and import all of that code into, say, your website, and actually start targeting people or retargeting people who visit that site, right? And that's not, you can actually use that populates every time you get web traffic to a website. So, take advantage of audience segmentations that way too. But yeah, a great call out there, Posey, is, sometimes we get kind of stuck in the way we do social media and it kind of gets stale. And the nature of social media is it changes. And that's kind of the beauty of our jobs. But so, it might be good just to brush off and take a peek under the hood from those channels that you do participate in.
Totally. And one other thing that you said, Matthew, is you talked about vertical storytelling. Can you explain that a little bit more and how you've seen it being leveraged, whether it's on social media or otherwise?
Right. So, there's many people who are using it more or less as either just a one-stop engagement. So we are only engaging in vertical storytelling to sell a product. So think of your beauty brands if you want to, they do that very well. Look at the makeup tutorial videos. You're even seeing YouTube doing those shorts now. If you follow YouTube, now you're starting to see shorts part of your subscription models. So if Google is doing something, it's going to stay for a while. Now, granted, they have a couple of services that go by the wayside, but video and YouTube is still their largest money-making machine, right? Yeah, Google Plus, RIP. But so there's definitely we see either come to this vertical space where we have your full attention, and I will share an idea or service or a product. Or what we're seeing is a lot of people are using it to take advantage of people's attention, right? So whether it's Instagram and saying, I have a new post, go and see it, right? And you can utilize the vertical platform for that, or they're teasers. So for YouTube, it's kind of like the theatrical trailer, right? So people in YouTube and all those services want people to use the vertical, so they're enticing people to use it. So, but maybe you don't have the space for vertical storytelling. Maybe you want people to drive to a website, or maybe you want to drive people to a horizontal, longer form video format. But you can use the vertical as its own free advertisement, right? So it's the beauty of that vertical storytelling, the placement that these services provide, is the element that you can do whatever you want to get those eyeballs to do a certain action, right? And so from a variety of different platforms to influencers are using it as well to entice people to learn more about a certain product or a certain service. But I see that ballooning to a point where, like, now Instagram, it's more or less a video platform than a photo platform now, right? And so these services are, again, for-profit companies. They're going to innovate where they can make money. Where they make money is the video storytelling. Any other questions? All right. Well, Posey, Shauna, do you want to go up next?
Yeah.
I sure will. Google Plus, hello. I love it. So I am in a little bit different space because as a graphic designer, again, I mentioned making things look pretty. And so I want to speak a little bit on that because honestly, my other two cohorts kind of stole everything. No, I'm just kidding. They touched on some really great points. And I just want to mention the fact that 80 minutes are spent on TikTok by an average American a day. That's a lot. I mean, I'm thinking of my day. I'm like, where do I have 80 minutes to spend on TikTok? But people do. So, and that leads me to say that vertical, just like Matthew was just saying, vertical storytelling is huge. And I honestly, the trend of the horizontal stuff, I think that trend is very small space for it. Again, like Matthew said, you can lead people to it, but those 80 minutes, the rest of the time, I don't know what people are doing. They're working, but they are not making horizontal videos. So with that said, I'm curious to know, and I know I can't see a show of hands exactly here, but how many of you guys have a social media person that does the graphics for you? Are you always doing them yourself? I saw a little pouty face. So I don't know how many of you, the companies you're with, have that person to help you. And I know a lot don't. My company in particular, I'm doing that as well. So I wanted to touch on the fact of, what works for people, because of the user generated content. I don't think people say, oh, it's got to look really good, pretty now. It doesn't, because you got this guy, you know, eating pizza. Your people are showing their food, and it's not so much from a graphic design point. It's not like, oh, it's got to look pretty anymore. So there's less emphasis on that now than that user generated content, and like anything goes, which is okay. It's great. It's working. So it makes me a little bit sad because, again, I'm a graphic designer and I like to make things look pretty, but I get it totally. With that said, you know, graphics are being added to user generated content. So there's a little bit that's still there, and that's really great. But so I'm curious if you are doing your social media graphic design, your elements, you're adding those in there yourself. What are you using? So the biggest one, I think, is Canva. I don't know how many of you guys use Canva, because it's easy. Okay. They've done a really great job in incorporating so many little bits and pieces and so much content that's already created for you. You just have to tweak it. Right. So Canva is definitely one of them. There's InShot. And a lot of them are honestly the same. Some of them have a few different things that you can tweak in a different way, but a lot of them, I think maybe the difference might be user friendly. Are they intuitive? Because if you have to like sit there for an hour and figure out how to, you know, edit your audio, then it's not going to be good for you. So that's one of the things that I think are a little bit different in these. But InShot is another one. Clips is another one. Adobe Rush, if you're in an Adobe space. Those are probably a few of the top. But again, my favorite is Canva, and I saw a hand raised for that one. And again, I think it's because of that user-friendly ability, and I don't have to create every little single thing from scratch because it's there for you. And because of that, those 80 minutes are spent viewing. Somebody has to make what people are viewing. So that's another, let's say, 80 minutes. So, you know, it takes up your time very easily. And I know everybody has a different way of, you know, creating their schedules. I know a lot of people on Monday, this is what I'm doing. I'm setting my whole week, or in some cases I'm setting my whole month, and then I can add to it. Our time is precious. For those of you with kids at home, our time is precious. Kids are going to take my day today, but that's great. Everybody deserves a little snow day, right? So one of the other things that I want to see as a trend, but I feel like will be a trend, and I'm also very hopeful, is that small businesses and big brands will put more money towards getting that social media help. Because I know a lot of people do it on their own. And I think that can only work for so long. If they really want to make an impact, it takes so much time. I mean, the viewing, like the statistic I keep going back to, the viewing is so much, and then that creating takes so much time as well. And if you just have one person doing it, there's burnout, there's what do I put on next? So I think that help is needed. And then some companies already do it, some bigger companies for sure. But there are a lot of companies and a lot of do-it-yourselfers. Influencers mainly do it themselves. So I'm hoping that we see that trend of a little bit more finances go towards helping those companies and those people out. So that is one of mine. I think too, it becomes very important that even though, you know, you make something that does or doesn't look pretty, to get it in front of the right target, of course, you have to work on that back end, the CEO, and getting those things correct in order to present it to the right people. I think maybe Matthew mentioned you can put stuff out to a general audience. That's fine, but you can't ignore the fact that if you want to sell a product or introduce something, whether customer service, you have to target it in the right direction. And I think that's very important as well, no matter what it looks like, right? So those are a few of mine. I can't speak more to the whole vertical thing. I hear a lot about it, and the fact that it's been tagged, you know, the vertical video, vertical space, vertical this, vertical that. It definitely has a hold of our future for sure. And if you got to go educate yourself, if you are a single person out there doing it without a lot of help, educate yourself, take some classes. How do I get this video to do what I want it to do? you're not alone. If you feel like you're alone, you're not alone. Like there's a lot of us that are like, okay, now I saw this. How do I get that to work? So Google it and then, you know, ask your bosses if you can have some help. Do we have some finances to do this, you know, because one person alone is pretty hard. So that's a few things I have. If anybody has any questions, I am happy to chime in. So let me know.
Yeah, Shauna, I love what both you and Matt had to share about vertical storytelling. I mean, I think it just goes to show that storytelling is not necessarily linear anymore. It's not, you know, beginning, a middle, and an end. Sometimes we'll start a story in the middle. Sometimes we'll just have a very specific subject matter and we'll go down from there and just talk through that. Looks like Steph and Nora and Mandy have been sharing some messages. Yeah, being a one-person department, that's no joke. Nora, I would love to hear from you about some of the challenges you face, what tools you use. And for those of you chiming in to the discussion, some of you have done this already, but tell us where you work and what your current role is so we can, you know, get a feel for who you are and where you're coming from. So Nora, if you want to chime in, if you're able.
Sorry, I have both kids are home today. It's a snow day, so but I have some peace. I work at a trade association for credit unions, so we are B2B space, and it's a very defined B2B space. Like there's some growth, and it's more like getting members and staffers involved at the credit unions in the leagues, services and products and advocacy efforts. So we just went through a merger, so I was using Canva a lot. The new team uses Adobe Suites, so we're looking at doing like Adobe Express for more graphical needs. I've used Illustrator and done signage and things like that, so I'm familiar using the more the products that use more brain space and take more time to use, but I'm a big fan of Canva, so that's
Awesome.
You mentioned
And
Illustrator. Were you self-taught?
yes.
See, there you go. I bet that took a large chunk of your time, and it's great to know those things. In a pinch, I've even gone back, like I know I can do this in Illustrator in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So there, it's nice to have that, but yeah, time-wise, it's like, oh, and that's a big one to learn. So kudos to you. Yeah.
Not as bad as Premiere.
Hey, Posey, can I add a few things? Just as Shauna was talking, some themes related to graphics and video storytelling that will also be more popular in 2023, and sorry to say, most likely expected from your brands. So obviously, diversity in graphics. We're slowly stepping. Brands are getting more diverse in their showing of diversity, but you know, think beyond just, you know, ethnicity, but also, you know, accessibility and disabilities. How can we incorporate various diverse elements and audiences in your graphic storytelling that helps elevate your brands and elevate your mission is paramount. But then also making sure that your graphics and your video are accessible, right? So if that means making sure that those keywords are added into your photos when you upload them, so that they appear to those to someone who, whether it's hearing or sight, can also consume that media as well. And then if you are doing video, I would do it regardless if it's accessibility or not, to add subtitles, right? Most people do not have the luxury of getting both your full video, visual and audio attention, right? And so, and let's be honest, I could be watching Netflix and I watch subtitles. You can hardly hear people anymore. So making sure that you have all of those goodies in your content so it performs across all audiences, across all preferences of consumption of media. So those would be my things. And then back to like what Shauna said, and I know all throughout the chat people are like, oh, I'm a one-man band. But that actually, if you do, for example, a a minute video, right? We know that most people's attention span is 15 seconds, right? You only have 15 seconds and then it drops. That's what our videos at Amarin usually do. But what you can do, and what you're starting to see in social, is people don't show the full video. They don't show the beginning, middle, and end of videos, right? And really, that's a really good strategic storytelling tactic, is not to give everyone the carrot at the end of the trip. Is to, you're starting to see specifically on Instagram, these home improvements where they show, and you're like, oh wow, this is gonna be great, and then they're like, come back for next, and you're like, ah. And then you're like, well, I guess I'll follow them because I'm now morally invested. Well, you could do that with your storytelling. You just need to do a little bit of planning. So do the whole video, right? Shoot it in, the vertical settings, but then go back and say, okay, now I have this great video, and now I can chop it up into 4. I have 4 pieces of content, add it to the calendar, done. Then you pretty much have that consistency, building audience, building expectations. And so, yes, it's a heavy lift at the beginning, but if done well, you actually start to build that audience, and it kind of decreases the burden on you for, say, a month if you do those visual campaigns. And then lastly, Nora, you were talking B2B. At Amarin, we do a lot with B2B businesses as well. We have found that any way that you can mimic the in-person exchange of ideas, because B2B is all about like, how are you doing it? What deals are you doing? What's the investment in my business? What is it for? Well, in person is still key. So at Amarin, what we've actually done is utilize a lot of LinkedIn strategy, because we are able to kind of connect the title with the business to the location. And we actually then craft either a webinar or an event that you can go to. And pretty much basically we did all the matchmaking for them, right? Because we used our targeting. And so those deals are much more fruitful when they go to these events for B2B customers. And so they're more likely to follow us, but also engage with us and convert, because basically we've done the fine tuning, the tailoring of those business deals. So LinkedIn has been a very key tool on B2B businesses. We're starting to see a little bit of pushback on Facebook because we have to tend with our B2C customer base on Facebook. But we do kind of zero in the targeting on Facebook for B2B businesses as well. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michelle, I see you chimed in as well. Mandy, anything you want to reflect on or share in your experience as a social media manager?
I think that being a one person band, one man, one woman band, it's challenging, and I would love to see brands, particularly my brand, increase our team. What I'm seeing is our budgets are shrinking, but then again, I'm in the food industry, so we all know that during the pandemic, and even in this can we call it a post-pandemic world? We're always on the edge of it, but budgets have shrunk, businesses have suffered, a lot have closed, and we've got people who are, the other thing too is that we keep seeing if people are working with agency partners, those rates are going up. Everything is getting more and more and more expensive. So it feels like the people who are in-house, the people who are on staff, the one person is being asked to do more and more and more and more. And I think, when we look at the list of the I can't remember where I saw this, but the list of tasks that fell to a social media manager 10 years ago, three of the 10 things are still part of that job, but there's also 7 new things. And so basically, I think if you want to be in this field and stay in this field, not only did you probably not receive formal training for it, you probably didn't major in social media in college. You majored in something else, or you have some other kind of background, and you ended up here and you're doing this. But I would say that, you're going to have to continue to evolve. The social media manager, the trend for the people is that we are always going to have to stay nimble. We're always going to have to be ready to embrace the next thing. We're going to have to be more scrappy, find more out of less, try to squeeze a little more water out. be ready to pivot, and get real scrappy and crafty with what we're creating, because, you know, as budgets are being cut, as you know, in some industries, not all, but you know, the money that's available to pay influencers, the money that's available to pay agency partners, it's going to end up falling back on the social media managers. So I would say, for me, a trend that I'm seeing in 2023 is self-care for social media managers, knowing when to say, I am one person and I can do what I can do, but I'm not a team of 12, and just knowing when to say, like, yes, would it be better for us to post 5 or 7 days a week? Would it be best for us to post, amazing, TikToks and separate content for Instagram and separate content for Facebook and Twitter? But I would also say that for the social media manager, really outlining and making it clear that the expectations that are placed on you, what you're actually going to be able, as a single human being with a limited budget, if you have any budget at all, to create. And everyone would love to see, if you work for a smaller brand or even a larger one, and your leadership comes to you and they say, oh, look what Nike did, this is so cool, we should do something like this. Well, that's fantastic, but let's hire Nike's team. So knowing how to defend your time, knowing how to defend your mental health, and say, if I am feeling burned out, what do I do? What are my resources? What are the good, healthy things I can do for myself when I feel like I'm reaching burnout? Especially if you're also managing customer service on social media and you're the only person doing that, you're wearing like 19 different hats, and about 6 of them change any given week. So learning how to take good care of yourself so that you can make it to the end of 2023, still able to function and put out good content, and not live and die by your numbers so much, but measure your success based on the longevity of what you're able to produce, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely makes sense. And you shared and gleaned a lot of insights from, what was previously shared. Thank you for expanding on that and reflecting on some of your challenges, Mandy. I know that can't be easy, especially with the shrinking budget and limited resources. Michelle, did you have anything you wanted to share about your experiences? And if not, Matthew, it looked like you unmuted.
Yeah, too loud around me. Got it. How many? Just for those who are on camera, we can raise your hands or put in the chat. How often do you? And I don't mean to phrase it in this way, but it's the reality that we're in. How many of you basically show your worth to leadership and on a regular cadence? So meaning you showcase like what performed well each month to leadership. How many people do that? Okay. I would implore, if it's not expected to you, to do that at some cadence, right? So whether it's after a campaign that either you proposed or your marketing has proposed, is to just do it on a regular cadence. One, just to make sure that they are aware that of your social media ecosystem, right? So if there's a product that they want to launch or some other, because we're all siloed, right, in various different departments within our business. So, but like the marketing department might want to push out a specific product, but then you have the knowledge of social media engagement, say that your prices are too high. So maybe that new product would go backfire because you're charging people too much, right? And so I would implore a lot of you just to make that a regular part of your processes, is to basically report out, whether that's an official report or just a chat with leadership. And it will start to, once you start building a cadence, once that will actually start to create some value, not for your own self, but exposure for leadership. So they'll know, wow, social media really can reach that people, or wow, we did that for free. And you're like, well, guess what? If we added 10 more bucks, we would actually need more people, or we would convert more people. And let's be honest, if we're looking at Facebook alone, it's a much cheaper alternative than other forms of advertising still, right? If done correctly, if done targeted wise. So it's actually, it could become a good stewards of money. But maybe most of the time people are just not aware, they're not informed, right? They look to us to basically keep the lights on, right? But sometimes you gotta say things and speak up. So whether that's you or building some kind of report out cadence, over time, it's not gonna, that first couple of meetings, maybe not even the first quarter is gonna show maybe worth, but over time you're building those relationships to the point where they expect we do something on social in addition to something else, right? At Ameren, we actually, and this is a little bit tedious, but we actually report on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, and yearly basis. And you're like, holy smokes, that's a lot of reporting. But guess what? Everybody then is invested in the social media process, right? So kind of maybe in 2023, you look back and say, okay, how can I get leadership invested in the work that I do? Or at least consider like the work that I do has value, so that we can go back and they're not starting from square one, Mandy, when asked, hey, I need help, I need at least an intern to help me do some things. They at least know I got it. Well, you did so well in that specific campaign, right? They have that knowledge. They have at least your endorsement because you've been reporting so much. So think about possibly even doing that. That's not even like an external social media strategy, just more internal. But sometimes you've got to balance the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say we're about 9 minutes from 9 a.m. So just time check here. If anybody has anything else they want to share, whether it's a trend you're excited about, a trend that you're a little bit hesitant about, maybe something you're hopeful about in the new year. If anybody wants to share, feel free to unmute or share it in the chat. Strategy for this year. Thanks for sharing, Michelle. So adding videos, love that. Video content is huge. Website posts that are substantial enough and will last there forever and be shareable. Yeah, having that evergreen content is great. And then a focus on LinkedIn and YouTube. Yeah, awesome. And then Amy, thanks for sharing about the report outs. Yeah, I think, yeah, like Matthew said, it's like the over communication piece. Over reporting is a real thing too, but it's a good thing because when you're reporting and you're measuring things, like Matthew said, it becomes a shared concern to everybody. Everybody's invested. Everybody wants to stay informed. Yeah, and totally. At the end of the campaign, then you can host a retrospective, see what worked, what didn't work, and then fine tune it for your next go around. Totally. Yeah, saving you from budget cuts and helping grow your budget too. And also negotiate your budget and ask for more money. Like, hey, we did this. This was our return. And this is what we should do next time. Hopefully with a bigger budget. Totally. Thank you for sharing in the chat. Anybody else want to unmute, share anything that way?
I'll jump in here if that's okay. And
Totally.
forgive me for not being on video, everyone. Pardon me. As I put in the chat, I've had a comedy of errors with technology this morning. But I think for the one-person teams, this my thing that I was going to point out might be just another thing that's added to your plate. But one thing that I would watch for this year is exactly, Posilu. One thing that I would watch for this year is increasing fragmentation in the social media landscape. We have decentralized platforms like Mastodon, Steemit, Minds, and other places. And those are all still pretty small. I mean, I think Mastodon is the largest decentralized platform. And as of last month, it had still only hit about 2.5 million monthly users, which is tiny compared to, you know, your broader reach platforms, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it happens to be. But one of the things that, you know, to think about with different platforms is trade-offs, right? Like we can get potentially mass reach on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, but we're also competing against pretty much everyone else. And we can go to smaller platforms, but one of the difficulties there is that while we have less competition, we also reach less people. One of the reasons, though, that I am thinking about fragmentation in the social media landscape, and in particular these decentralized platforms, though, is because even if those platforms don't become big and they don't become more broadcast like or worldwide reach like you know, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok is that in a smaller space, you often have a much better chance of building a highly dedicated community and a group of people that, you know, feel some affinity to one another. So unfortunately for, you know, the one person teams or the teams where there's just too many things on the plate, to, you know, too many plates in the air spinning or whatever it is, this is yet another thing to think about. But if you do go out there and you're sort of like blazing new trails or you're trying new things, it does also create opportunities to maybe find that new community, that new set of, it could be influencers, it could be people who are just, you know, diehard, sort of passionate about what you provide. And then again, you don't have to deal as much with the competition. So after my monologue there, you know, sadly, I'm stuck in this mode where I can't don't have my video on and can't seem to see everyone. I would love to hear, though, or see in the chat, if anybody either personally or professionally is trying out some smaller communities. I think I heard Matt mention Nextdoor. You know, Nextdoor's been around for a long time, but it's smaller. Anybody trying Mastodon, or gosh, I mean, even groups in certain ways on LinkedIn or Facebook can be smaller communities. Anybody trying anything like that? And if not, it's perfectly fine. It's just something that I'm watching for this year. So.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, this is Steph. I'm at Sprout Social, the social media scheduling tool. And something that we're starting and we're seeing from some other bigger brands is also creating your own. So we just launched a community space online. So it's all just Sprout customers. And yes, we have Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups and those kinds of things, but you're also seeing some other bigger companies that have some budget behind it are investing in creating their own little mini like communities and spaces.
Posey, I think we're at time, but I guess we have a conclusion and some events headed our way in the near future.
Yes, absolutely. So our social SIP happens on the first Wednesday of every month. So in February, we'll be back on schedule. This event was planned a week later than our typical. We'll usually be hosting in-person events on the first Wednesday and the third Wednesday of each month. So with the start of the new year and the holidays, we had pushed this one back a little bit. We skipped our first social SIP. But our first one of the year will be Wednesday, February 1st, this coming Wednesday at Shaw's Coffee. It's on Shaw Avenue in the Hill. And it will kick off at 7:30, go until 8:30. It will be like a roundtable networking discussion like we typically do. And then our other event will be on the third Wednesday. I believe that's February 15th, day after Valentine's Day. And that will be at Rooster on Grand. So that will be our typical meeting space, alternating between Shaw's and Rooster. Just so then we've kind of got our repeating schedules and events that can, you know, hopefully be built into your work schedules. We will share out more information about those events you're interested in registering. Thank you guys for joining us today. I know it was quite the pivot from what we were hoping to do in person. And then, still getting to do it here, which I found to be very valuable. So thank you guys so much. Have great Wednesdays. Like I said, we will be posting and promoting our upcoming events and programming. So thank you for joining today. We hope to see you at our future events.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Y'all.
Bye, Shauna.